Hi everyone, thank you for joining this webinar. I'm Nico Javelot, Solutions Architect here at Mistral, and here with me is Jan and Matthew.
Hi there, Ian Matthew. I'm also Solutions Architect here at Mistral.
And we'll get started in a few minutes, but I guess just to describe what we're going to go through, this is the first part of 2 sessions. In this first webinar, we are going to more keep it at a high level, just to introduce you to what Document AI is, what it offers, when you need to extract data or derive data from unstructured sources. So we'll keep it at a high level, more understand the challenges, the capabilities, and go through a demo with some sample documents. And in a second webinar, we'll deep dive a bit more into actual code, the whole DX, so the developer experience, and build something based on a real use case. So I guess before we start jumping, I guess for Jan and I to get a sense of your confidence level with your proficiency with how you're doing document understanding, it would be good if in the chat you can drop some details around how used you are with extraction pipelines and this type of processing pipelines, but also the type of use cases or industries that you've been working with. That would help us just build that understanding, make sure that we address what needs to be addressed, and also tailor maybe the questions when we have the Q&A. We'll know what to expect in terms of levels and industries. I think we'll give it a few more seconds, and then we'll get started with the first slide. Cool. I guess it's N10 Gemini structured document. Okay. Intermediate. That's useful. Okay. Using ducklings. I can see some ducklings and then okay, so OCR for tables and images, metadata extraction. Okay, N8 again. CCM document generation. Okay, RAG and chatbot. Okay, so a lot of very different use cases. Regular received documents, so accuracy is very important. Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's great. Keep it coming if you still want. Let's move to the actual presentation. What I'll do is I'm going to share my screen here. Before we jump into the meat of what Document AI is, I'm going to take a first step back. I'm not going to go too far back because I'm going to assume that I don't need to go necessarily into the full origin stories. I'm going to assume that if you're joining anyone joining here a webinar that is done by Mistral in late 2025, you know roughly how we started, and that we started by offering open source models back in 2023. But what I think is worth emphasizing, though, is our mission, the mission statement here, that I'm sure I can read, but it's basically to enable people and organizations to unlock the transformational value of frontier AI with open and flexible solutions. So obviously this can be, there's a lot to unpack in here, but among other things, it means also being independent from the traditional big tech players with no dependency on a given country. But also means that the solutions can be fully portable and trained on your own data. So if you're in an enterprise account, then you can train on your own private data, which might not be reflected in the training mix, usually found with public only data. And we do have that motto along the lines of we bring AI to your data, not the opposite. And as I mentioned, if we look a bit at what Mistral is bringing. So historically, we started more with the Mistral AI foundation, right? We started with the model layer, where we came up with a mixture of experts model back with the 7B. But since then, we actually moved to expand in 3 additional directions. So of course, we're still doing very much doing the model layer, that's for sure. But we have moved to expand in 3 additional directions. The first one is we're moving down to the compute part, where we're going to have our own GPUs available in 2026 with the Mistral Compute offering. But that doesn't mean that the rest is going away. We always make sure when we say it's flexible and open, we really want to keep the flexibility to deploy wherever it makes the most sense. So be it serverless, being on private cloud or even public cloud, or on-prem in self-hosted scenario, we could go in any direction with all of our models and solutions. So definitely going down in the compute layer, but also going up with Mistral AI Studio. So that's more going one level up is when you start reaching the platform. So it's building a toolkit that will allow you to use the models and the compute to actually build AI-powered solution. So that AI Studio is really, you could think of it as the developer toolkit. And if you go one level higher as well, you're going to start to have the products and package solutions like Le Chat, Mistral Code, or Document AI, where you're going to be able to leverage this. And if we consider more the right-hand side of the screen, that's more the solutions. We are also aggressively developing our solutions team because we have noticed that a lot of medium and large companies actually need help for scoping, designing, and deploying AI projects, but also partnering with us to do custom training or science projects. So these are really the full spectrum of what we offer as a whole. But to put things in context, today we are really going to focus on the top layer, and especially with Document AI. So moving to now into more of the challenges that goes with the document understanding. I'm sure most of you, when I was asking in the chat, it seemed like a lot of you were intermediate and used to processing pipelines. So I'm sure a lot of this will sound familiar, but I wanted to level set and make sure we have a common understanding on the main challenges that we're going to face in this solution, in this context. And I like to organize them in 4 different areas. The first area is more that, well, extracting data is hard, and it's hard because you're going to have a lot of modalities to support. So you can have images, text, pictures, a lot of modalities. You're going also to have a lot of different file formats. So some will be JPEG, some will be EPUB, some will be something else. And finally, you're also going to have very differing quality for the input. Right? Sometimes you're going to have a perfectly digitized document, but sometimes it's going to be a very low res picture from a handheld device of an invoice. So obviously, all of that is bringing it's basically having a pipeline that can support all of this variety of format and quality is non-trivial. Oh. And if we move to the second challenge, what we're going to see is not only the input can be difficult, but the complex of the layout of the input is going to vary widely. So you can have very simple layouts if you think about invoices or simple receipts, but it could go into something that is complex or very complex. Like for example, it's very small, but the bottom left corner is something used in oil and gas for downstream use cases, where you have tables, images, graphs, all of that embedded into one document. So it can go from very simple to very complex. And for each layout, they can also be static. So for a type of document, you're always going to have the same layout, but it could also vary, right? You could have, for W2s, for example, you're going to have some amount of variation in the layouts. And over time, they might also change. So obviously, you have this whole diversity, again, of layouts. Supporting this diversity is difficult because in a more traditional OCR world, every time you want to change significantly the layout, you do have to have some work to re-update your pipeline. So having a solution that is going to be flexible to adapt to the layout diversity is key when you want to operate at scale. And the third challenge we're going to face is more down to the nature of the data. So it's less about the input itself. It's more the data that you have in that input. Sometimes the data is going to be very basic. When we're talking about an invoice, it's going to be fairly straightforward. But sometimes you're going to have very highly specific and niche domains, like you could think of annotations for oncology diagnostics and drugs, for example. Here, it's going to be less represented in the training mix, and it's going to be the concepts are going to be far more complicated for the models to pick up on. So being able to specialize your pipeline and the underlying models to perform on private data will yield far higher performance if you are targeting some use cases where you need that niche expertise. And finally, this one is more looking at the scale you need to operate with. And it's if you're just doing a few use cases isolated, it's usually fine. But as soon as you start to operationalize things and you want to reach the enterprise level scale, then that's usually where you need to have a solution that is very efficient, both in terms of speed, but also accuracy, obviously. So having a solution that is efficient yet very powerful is going to make a key difference when you need to operate at the enterprise level. And that's with these 4 areas in mind that we try to shape Document AI to give the right balance, tackle all of these challenges, and provide you developers or companies with a solution that will allow you to do more than just traditional OCR, to go beyond that, and to be able to extract as much information, extract or derive as much information as you can from unstructured sources. And we do this by combining the traditional OCR that I'm sure you're all used to with vision models. So it's really combining both to be able to go beyond the traditional thing. So when I say combining both, then just to make it very, very clear, yes, you can just use Document AI just for OCR. We do have a lot of clients doing this. So it's basically you give the document, and then the model is obviously going to do character recognition, and it's going to output the markdown version that you get that, and you're also going to get all of the extracted images with their B-boxes. That's what you will get if you just use the OCR component of the solution. But we also have the option to go one step beyond and to combine this with the annotations. And annotations is when you start adding that layer, adding the vision model into the mix. And what you'll get is, well, the 2 red boxes that you had before, but also the bottom 2, where you can now use the vision model to add a layer of understanding of the document, and we're going to see exact examples in the demo in just a few minutes. But basically, you're going to get that green box that is a structured output that you're defining. So you get like a structured output with the fields exactly as you need them and define them. And you can run that as well for each images. So that's the blue box. You can define also a set of fields or a set of rules to extract that is going to be run for every single image that has been detected as part of the OCR process. It's kind of the overall flow of how document AI is going to work and input-output combination. I think rather than just describing things like this, I'm going to move to more of a demo. So give me one quick sec. Oops, sorry. And here you should be able to see this environment where this is just a quick environment where we want to do more of a side-by-side where you can see the document that was sent to Document AI. So in this case, it's a picture from a phone of a service order. So someone from a utility company went to adjust something, made some repairs, and that's the service order that they signed and filled in and signed. That was submitted. We submitted this to Document AI, and we're going to get two different things. We're going to get, as we explained, the markdown. Right, so that's maybe more what you're more familiar with when you just do the traditional OCR. But we're also going to have the structured outputs that I was mentioning earlier here. And here what you see is a visualization of the underlying JSON. Is just, I figured that showing you all a raw JSON might not be the most visual part. So this is just a visualization of the underlying JSON. And so if we stop a second just to set the scene of, what do we have here? Instantly, you should, if you're familiar with this type of pipeline, you can spot a few things where it can be a challenge for some OCR solutions. Where it's picture from a document, it's actually not, the quality is not that great, and it's also, it has large parts that are handwritten. A layout that is not overly complex, but semi-complex, so which might be difficult to guess for some models. And we'll see how the solution handle all of this. And it's basically the first thing to point out is when you're looking at the structured outputs, you can see that first we are contextualizing everything, right? So that's where here we have the company info that is into a nested object. So all of the information is going to be picked up and organized in nested objects and arrays. So that's where you can see the different objects and fields, the name of the company, exact connect, the postal code, and all of this. Then you have more of the concept of the work order, the order number. And if we keep scrolling down, we're going to reach an interesting first field that I wanted to highlight, and it's these two. Because everything above is more what I'm sure you're all familiar with, that is just data that lives in the document. It's just in the doc, you extract it and you contextualize it, you put it in some fields. Here you have these two fields, work is authorized and work is approved. These are actually information that is derived from the document. Technically, you have the information because you have a signature at the top right and also at the bottom left. And what we've done is when we define the structured outputs, we have defined two Boolean fields where we tell the VLM that if the document has some signature for authorization, then we need to do a true for work is authorized, and same thing with work is approved, which allows us to have a more standard way and more a much stronger way to handle that downstream. When you put the document AI not just as a in itself, but more as a piece, as a part in a much larger workflow that allows you to do far more downstream. if we keep scrolling down, we're going to hit the services here. Services with entry 1 and entry 2. That's where you're going to be able to see how we are representing the tables here, where each row in that table is going to be an entry in that array. So that's how you can see that here as well. You can transform the data so that it's modeled in a way that is going to make it far easier for you as a developer and far easier as part of a larger workflow to actually work with it. You drop the doc, and what you get is an output that is validated and that you can actually easily work with downstream. And you're going to have all of the rest like this. One other type of document I wanted to, or other scenario that I wanted to mention is you can use, if we look at a KYC example, KYC use case, you can use Document AI as a way, again, to extract the data. So here you can see the same thing where just imagine you're part of a bank and you're receiving, any kind of documents as part of the KYC process. You need to digitize them and work with them. Here we got a passport being submitted. So sure, we can export information that you can see in passports, but you're also going to have that first field here, the document type, where here as well, we're going to use the annotation feature to categorize the document. So here it assesses that it's a passport. If it was a driving license, it would say it's driver license. So you can easily see how you can use here as well that downstream to handle documents very differently if needs be. And see, I see some mention of human in the loop. Yes, that's where it can also be very interesting, where if, for example, you detect automatically that the quality is very low, you could have this impact the whole flow, where you're going to ask for, you're going to leverage some human to edit or to validate some information, whereas if it detects that the quality is very good and you have a great confidence, then you can maybe just continue with the automated process. And jumping around with just a last type of document, here it's more of a healthcare use case, where you have that form of, a 2-page form with, I believe it's a subscriber that is just doing a claim. What I wanted to show you is, if you have a document with multiple pages, what you're going to get as part of the OCR is you get page 1, you get the markdown, and then you get page 2 with the markdown as well. And if you go all the way to the structured outputs, there we're going to see how, I just wanted to have an example where you can see how we handle the checkboxes. That in this case are going to be translated into booleans. Here as well, for example, has other insurance, that the checkbox in the document, it's being translated automatically into true false. But I wanted to highlight this field particularly, that in this document I've defined as a boolean, where we can apply a layer of logic to the document. So what this field is doing is it's detecting the subscriber, so the name of the subscriber here in the row 1E, and it's going to compare it with the name of the patient in 1B. And that's where, if these two were not matching, the model basically would be able to detect that, and we would get a false, which might have a downstream impact. And all of that, all of this can be defined with a simple definition of your output. You are not hard-coding a logic, you're not hard-coding, it's not based on coordinates and the layout. You're just defining the field, and we'll see exactly in the second session, upcoming session, where we'll do the actual DX, actual coding experience. But basically here, you'll just be defining the field with some generic description when needs be, and the model is going to be smart enough to detect and run with the instructions that you have. Here, there's no I'm not telling the model you're going to look at 1B, you're going to look at 1E. I'm just describing what it should be looking for, and it does it on its own. And the way you would be doing this is if you're using the Python SDK, then you would be usually we recommend to use just Python class, just because it's very simple. You just define the output as a class. And that's yes, I know it's an ugly URL, but it's just a very temporary environment that I've spun up for this webinar. What you would do is you would define a Python class in the Python SDK, or if you're working with a REST API, you would have the custom schema defined as part of your payload. Okay, so I want to make sure to leave a lot of time for the questions. So let me go back here just to wrap things up. And here, just to just summarize what we've seen. We see that it's very important to be fast, of course, but also to be accurate in the character extraction. That sure is very important, but it's just not enough anymore. And I'm sure you've seen other models. Other models also offer a lot more than just simple character extraction, and that's where it's very important nowadays to be able to understand and contextualize the data that is extracted. It's not just the extraction that matters anymore, especially because what happens is in real life you end up using maybe just 1 or 2% of the data that is, or the tokens that you extract from the documents. So that's where we strongly believe that the extra capabilities that you can get with Document AI are going to be very useful. I've summed up a few here that I mentioned. So being able to do the data relationship, so represent the data in nested objects or have the array relationship is very useful. Being able to do some classification we saw the driver license bill, but you can do any kind of classification that is relevant for your use case. And the compliance use case is one that, especially for financial services and healthcare, being able to do the signature detection or things like this, extremely useful. Applying a layer of logic when we compared the subscriber with the patient name. I had some actual real life examples where we were assessing a level of fraud for a document. Did it look legit or not? A very interesting use case is also reformatting values. So especially interesting when you handle handwritten documents where you can't control the input. Even if you say on your form, the date should be with this format, I can guarantee you that not everyone will follow the instructions. So it's very useful to be able to reformat the values as part of the extraction. And finally, I wanted to make sure to mention the fine-tuning capabilities, because obviously even the models that are not open source with Mistral, they're always open weight. So fine-tuning is always an option, which we see being extremely important, especially when you start delving into very niche domains. Like I was talking about oncology, but you might very well know a lot of other highly regulated industries where they have a troves of private data, and being able to fine-tune the model to work well with the private data is extremely important. So right before moving to the questions, I wanted to, if you're excited and you want to get started, how can you get started now? What I would suggest is, if you don't have one already, just go to AI Studio. Obviously, we'll have the link. Create an account. You can create an API key, and from then you can just start interacting with the solution. Using with serverless is definitely the fastest and the simplest. And there I would definitely encourage you to, for sure, we're going to have a second session where we can do the development together. But do refer in the meantime to our cookbooks. We have developed these cookbooks with real-life examples, and also refer to the API documentation. But from now, I think we'll move to the Q&A. So let me move to this and bring up maybe a few questions. I don't know, Jan, if you have identified a few questions already, or if I'll start jumping into questions.
Yeah, I can have a look at the chat and start pulling out a few questions. If
Yep.
anyone had ones in particular, I can also bring them to the top. So Nico, maybe a good one to start with is just cost of the solution over the API. I think it was we saw that one come up a couple times.
Okay, sure. So I mean, I guess there's the pay as you go, right? And then there's for enterprise level, you can have usually some discount with commitments. But if we're just focusing on the pay as you go solution, it's priced as for pure CR as $1 per 1,000 pages, and when you use annotations, it's $3 per 1,000 pages. And obviously, for very high volume clients, we do bulk discounts.
Fantastic, thank you. Can you also maybe describe? There were a few questions about building tooling around the document solution. Can you maybe help understand where exactly the model sits, and if it were to be part of a RAG workflow or something with additional components around it?
For sure, I'll start, and if you can think of anything else, just feel free to also add some colors. I guess, I mean, obviously, it's always going to depend on the use case and the clients. What we see, though, is two different things. For large enterprise, usually it's going to be part of a workflow, like a much larger workflow. So I mentioned briefly during the demo a KYC process. So sure, Document AI is a solution that is doing extraction, but it's usually just a small part in much bigger process. And when that's the case, well, that's why you can use AI Studio that also includes Mistral workflows to just build something that is a bit more holistic. Or we also have developers that are using their own workflow engines to leverage the Document AI solution. And in terms of where does the solution sits, that's really going to depend on the type of clients and the exact scenarios, the exact context we're working with. If it's more of a individual developer or smaller projects, usually we tend to see the serverless approach being leveraged far more, where you have whatever solution they use that is leveraging our API, either through the Python SDK or the REST APIs that we have. But when we have deployments for highly regulated, companies in highly regulated industries, usually that's when deploying on-prem, or at least in an air-gapped environment in a private cloud, becomes very important. And that's when then we just deploy the whole solution on their premises or on their cloud, where they can then interact with the solution without sending the data technically to Mistral. And if they need to do some fine-tuning based on their own data that they cannot share externally, that's where we would have this the solution sitting.
Perfect. So I'm happy to take a couple of these as well. So there were a few questions about confidence levels. Right now, we don't have confidence levels built into the app. Into the output of the payload. It's potentially something that we're working on building in the next iteration, but for right now, it's not available as part of the solution. And Nico, do you want to take the question here about bounding boxes?
The bounding boxes, I saw one where does notation provide you? Yes, okay. So the current solution with, so it's going to depend if we're looking at text or if we're looking at images. We do, so confidence level you answered. For the bounding box, we do bbox for images. So any image that is detected by the OCR is going to be coming along with the bbox. We do not support yet bbox for text level, so word level bboxes. That is on the roadmap and will come in a future release.
Perfect. Thank you.
There was also a question about, or more of a comment about a context window, where saying that, I had it, sorry, yes, saying that basically a lot of the time the difficulty comes in the context window. Yes, that's for depending on the use case, definitely true. When we are handling documents with hundreds of pages, it's true that this can be an issue, or it can be definitely a challenge. Here, that's usually where doing several paths is going to be useful. So using Doc AI maybe to more on the OCR base and then have multiple paths through LLMs is going to help you with models with much larger context window. That's usually going to be able to help you. Potentially, we've seen solutions where you add summarization steps. So you try to boil down the huge document into smaller sections and then have the extraction being done with these subsets. Obviously, there's no magic one answer on this one. What we do see, though, is it's not always an issue, right? We do see a lot of use cases where the documents are actually not that long, and especially for anything that is, use cases where you're trying to replace BPOs, so invoicing, processing, or contracts processing, all of this type of use cases. Usually, it's more of a sub 50 pages or sub 10 pages even, and in that case, that's where you can adjust which model and which solution you're going with.
Great. And there's been a few questions here about language support. I'm going to paste a list of supported languages, the 2-letter country codes in the chat here. So feel free to have a look there and see if there are any ones that match your expectations. Great. And maybe this is a good question for you, Nico, as well. But maybe a quick one about structured outputs.
For the structured output, we use Mistral as Azure Foundry. Okay, and how do we increase accuracy? So you have multiple options here, because it's really going to depend on what are we trying to solve for. So because accuracy is obviously a very broad term. If sometimes accuracy is not great or could be improved because we have a very, very, very generic description. So sometimes what we've seen is doing some sort of prompt engineering in the description does yield a lot of improvement, especially when you're trying to extract data, for example, that is when you have a list of options. So you have a document where you list, let's assume we're doing a pharmacy, and from a document from pharmacy, and you can have a set list of options for drugs. Saying in the description the list of drugs is going to yield much better results. So some amount of prompt engineering can make a difference. Where you're going to really have a huge jump in accuracy is obviously as soon as you start doing fine tuning. If you have large enough sample sets, and it's what you're trying to improve is the example I was giving earlier about the oncology. That's actually a real example that we've done. It's difficult concepts. These concepts are not necessarily well represented in any of the generic models that people will have. I mean, ours or even our competitors. So being able to fine tune so that the model understand the underlying concepts, that is going to also have massive gains in accuracy. So I would say a mix between, I would always start with slight prompt engineering, some strategies on how do you organize, how do you define your structured outputs. So potentially structuring it into nested objects versus just a list of fields. You can have improvements there by having a smarter modelization of your data, of the structured outputs, and then fine-tuning if that's relevant for the use case.
So I saw a question here about the recommended DPI. So obviously, the better the quality of the document that you upload, the more likely you'll have better quality output. One thing the model will do is actually resize and convert the image as a pre-processing step. During this pre-processing step, this is where we do some like more efficient token management, so we don't overload the model. Sorry, going through the questions now.
Yeah, I saw something with data privacy for proprietary data. So I guess that's what I mentioned earlier briefly, where it's really going to be down to the assessment of, it's always a trade-off, right? The more secure, the more you're going to go on-prem on an air-gapped environment. If the data privacy is, it's basically you're in an industry where you just cannot share, it's like patient data, for example, this cannot leave your infrastructure, then usually we would definitely recommend air-gapped environments with on-prem deployment. But sometimes you can achieve a very high degree of privacy still with serverless. Obviously, we are GDPR compliant. We are compliant with all the laws, all the European laws when it comes to data privacy, which is making sure that the data is safe. We do have the option to do zero data retention, so that when this is enabled, nothing is going to be logged. Nothing is kept. We just have the metadata from the request, but it's nothing. No data, actual private data is being logged or retained. And obviously, none of that data is used for training.
And saw a couple questions here also about local deployment. If you guys are interested in local deployment, it is an offering that we do have. It's something we can actually, you can work through our sales teams to assess the need and start to scope the number of documents that you guys might be running on prem. Good for us to also get a sense of what infra deployment might look like and help you guys through that.
I had one here. Oh, sorry. On can I use the API to extract data from multi-column PDF? Yes, you can. I mean, overall, I mean, obviously, as usual, the more complex the layout, the more you have to test. But in the demo that I did, you did have some places where the PDF, especially the healthcare example that I gave, you do have multiple columns in the table, but also as part of the form, you had more than one column on the page. The solution is going to be smart enough to detect these are different pieces of data and is going to model them accordingly. So the short answer is yes. I'm seeing something around prompt injection. I do not believe we have anything to do this. You won't be able to do much until you're fully air-gapped on this one. In the model itself, that's going to be harder. That said, if you're on-prem with air-gapped, I mean, it's all down to what is the prompt injection doing and what is the risk that you're trying to mitigate. So the languages on the roadmap. So you did share earlier, Jan, the list of languages already that are already supported. You have some that are not officially supported. Basically, anything that we call supported is the ones where we know we have a very strong accuracy. Obviously, if it's not on the list, I would always suggest you to try, because obviously the model is trained on public data. So it's going to be trained on a vast amount of different languages, depending on the your exact context. Also, one thing to mention is we did for, I believe this is, we did with some clients custom training to do understanding, basically have a better performance across specific languages. So we did one with Southeast Asian languages to cover Arabic, Southeast Asian languages, and I believe Indian as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jan.
Yeah, a few of
Yeah.
the subcontinent languages.
Yeah. Okay. Sometimes, depending on the exact context, there's also, even if it's not on the roadmap, there's also possibility to add. Going through the slide.
I'm not sure what the question about the compilers, but it's a service run over the API, so it's a transformer-based model. So already fully integrated.
And I see this question as well that is interesting around working with sensitive data, especially in financial documents. Yes, it's very important. What we do see in this type of situations is, I was always referring to document AI being a part in a much larger workflow or a much larger process. When the data is that critical, usually we do see a need to have a human in the loop component. So we see something like document AI working very, very well hand in hand with a third party or in-house solution where document AI does the understanding, extraction, and derivation of the data, and then it's being reviewed and approved by someone, like an actual human, but it's just saving time, making sure we standardize as much as we can. But when sensitivity is that high, we do see still a need for at least some validation for human. Even just from a pure legal point of view, like a liability point of view.
I think this is a great question. So what I would recommend is either having a look at the recording, and Nico shows a good example of how you perform a structured output. It's actually quite simple. You run a pedantic model and you pass it through the API with a particular flag, but no need to run a separate model. All can be done within one go.
Yeah, and we'll do definitely the deep dive. I mean, I could jump to the code, but we'll do a full deep dive on the actual how is it built. One thing that is definitely not needed, very simple pedantic class. If you do feel like we've done some tests as well where sure you can use an LLM to help you build the structured output, but it's not needed. The definition of the structured object is actually very simple. It's literally just a class with the field. Description is optional. If the name of the field is straightforward enough, this model is going to be smart enough to understand what it needs to be doing. If you want to add more logic or be a bit more, a bit fancier, then that's where adding a description is going to increase the accuracy, as we discussed a bit earlier. But it's very straightforward. And I'm going through rest, but it feels like we've answered most questions. So I see the question in French, and I'm going to take this one. So yes, is it going to be offered as a local model? So I don't know if in this one you mean like fully open source or if it's going to be able to run on-prem. This is definitely available on-prem for on-prem deployment. That's actually a big chunk of the deployments we do in the US, especially with highly regulated companies. The underlying OCR model is open weight, but is a commercial model, if that was the meaning of the local. So it depends what you put behind local. Obviously available serverless.
Yep. Maybe just the question around pricing. It's pretty straightforward, as Nico mentioned. It's $1 per 1,000 pages, or $3 per 1,000 pages for doing structured output. There's no separate pricing scheme for token-based consumption there. The token opposition is more for just the model itself and the input.
Yeah, we try to keep it simple because we've heard that feedback loud and clear from people using Tesseract and some other solutions, let's say, where pricing can be confusing. So we try to keep it very simple and have just something where you know what to expect.
And I've seen this one come up a couple times, documents embedded as attachments. I think this is out of scope for the model right now. The way the model works is going to process the PDF as an image. So it's not going to try and retrieve anything else that may be attached. Whatever's visible to the reader is what the document will extract. Sorry, it's what the model will extract.
Okay, yeah, that's one thing we were talking about. Yeah, I'm going through the early questions in the chat. Yes, I'm just going to bring this one because it tells yes. So I mean, this exact workflow, yes, we can, but I think it brings again home the point that I tried to make a few times, where we do see a lot of value is when you can embed documentary or solutions like this into a much larger picture, right? It's not just extraction for extraction; it's to be able to fit into a much larger picture. And yes, this exact workflow is doable, obviously, through whatever tool you're using. I mean, is it Mistral workflows or is it something else? That's definitely doable. And overall, I would even go further and say that's what we would recommend is to try to find opportunities where the extraction is just one step to a much larger goals. And that's how you're going to bring far more value than just extracting data from a unstructured document. Yes, absolutely. That's the short answer is yes, absolutely. Give me 1 quick second. I'm going to, because this came up a few times. Let me just show an example of. Okay, let me go back to sharing my screen then. And here you're going to be able to see cookbooks. So apologies for the hardcore developers that only do dark theme. I'm going to be in a light theme, but basically what I'm looking at right now is one of our cookbooks that presents how you can use Mistral, the document AI. And here I'm really focusing on annotations. So really when you want to have that structured output, and this is just one example, where in this example, you're going to have different concepts that we are coming up with. And here you can see that it's just as simple as defining 3 classes, because I have 3 layers in my structured output. So basically, I just define what is the name of my class, what are the fields I'm looking at. So here it's image type and the description. And for them, if I want, it's optional. You can add a description that is going to help the model be smarter. But even without it, if the the name of the variable is straightforward enough, it should be able to figure out what to do. So for example, something like a summary, it's even without a description, it's going to do good. It's going to do great anyway. But you can always add some description. So very straightforward. That's if you do it with Python. With if you're working with the REST API directly, that's more we support the just a standard implementation of custom schema, where you define the custom schema for the strict output you're looking for, and it's going to handle basically it's exactly the same way. So we have this one, yeah, and that is interesting. What makes Mistral's architecture particularly efficient for fine-tuning or RAG scenarios compared to other models? I guess it's always going to depend on what model we compare it with. For the fine-tuning part specifically, well, it's first because you can fine-tune compared to some other models. I mean, obviously you have other models where you can fine-tune it, but it's the model, even when it's commercial, is always open weight, so you can always fine-tune it, contrary to some competitors. For open source models, where you can definitely fine-tune on your own, what we see, especially at an enterprise level, is with fully open source, models come usually with the downside of having no support. And when you try to scale, not to one use case, but to 50, 100 use cases, usually that's when you want to have a certain level of support, and you want to make sure that support for the model deployment, but also for the fine-tuning, that you can have a team that helps you, or you also have a product that will, stay here in a year or 2 years' time, and that's where usually Mistral shines compared to some other models, because you can't fine-tune, or if you fine-tune, you're usually on your own. This one, yes, it absolutely can. That's one of the fields I actually had in the demo. It's very useful to be able to have a field. In this case, you can just do document type. Most of the time, even without description, it's going to do good. It's going to do great. If you do a description when you're looking for a specific output, like a hard categorization, you can just add the list as part of the description, and it's definitely going to be able to do it, yes.
Great. And actually, I think with that one, we're right at the top of the hour. So thanks everyone for taking the time to watch the webinar. We've got a few more in the series, so looking forward to seeing you guys back on here next time.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.